Watching the House floor all day long in our free time as Republicans try to decide whether Ohio extreme right-wing Congressman Jim Jordan will become their leader, the Speaker of the House. If Jordan is elected Speaker, the person second in line to the American presidency after the Vice President, the Speaker will be someone who actively worked to subvert our constitutional democracy, someone who tried to participate in a coup against the United States government. According to the final January 6th Select Committee report, quote, Jordan participated in numerous post-election meetings in which senior White House officials, Rudy Giuliani and others, discussed strategies for challenging the election. Chief among them claims that the election had been tainted by fraud. On January 2nd, 2021, Representative Jordan led a conference call in which he, Donald Trump, and other members of Congress discussed strategies for delaying the January 6th joint session. Quote, during that call, the group also discussed issuing social media posts encouraging President Trump's supporters to march to the Capitol on January 6th. The day before January 6th, Representative Jordan texted Mark Meadows, passing along advice that Vice President Pence should, quote, call out all the electoral votes that he believes are unconstitutional as no electoral votes at all. He spoke with Trump by phone at least twice on January 6th, though he has provided inconsistent public statements about how many times they spoke and what was discussed. When asked today why he would not admit to his Republican colleague Ken Buck that the 2020 election was not stolen, jacketless Jim Jordan wouldn't give an answer. Joining us now from Capitol Hill, where she's covering all the action, my friend and colleague, NBC News correspondent Ali Vitale. Ali, it is a sad state of the world when this is not that it's light, but it is lighter than a war. Jim Jordan as Speaker. Tell me the latest.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you're right to point out all of that background, Nicole. On top of that, you have to remember that the January 6th committee had a lot of valid questions for the congressman, and he defied those subpoenas. That's something that I talked with former January 6th committee chairman Benny Thompson about today, asking how it feels to see Jordan basically within striking distance of the speakership, although he's far from having locked it up. And Thompson said that while he was dismayed that someone like Jordan could get that close, he was almost felt better about the fact that he wasn't there quite yet. I did reference the fact that Jordan was going to try again, and Thompson said, yeah, but anything can happen around this place. But certainly for the members of the January 6th committee, it is certainly a stark moment of contrast to go from a Democratic majority where there were valid inquiries into trying to piece together for the American public what happened on the 6th, to now seeing someone who was an active participant in that come as someone who's the likely next Speaker of the House. And I think that word likely is really important here, Nicole, because right now he's the person who's next, but it's not clear that Jim Jordan can get the 217 votes that he actually needs to get this position. It's why at the beginning of this hour, I thought I'd be coming on the air with you, telling you that we expected a vote around 6 o'clock. That was what my sources had told me earlier in the afternoon. We know that Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise had met, that Jordan's trying to continue talking to members. And now, just in the last few minutes, Jordan himself telling our colleagues that they still need more time to keep talking to members, and that means they're going to go home tonight and they're not going to do another round of votes until 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. This is because, as Jordan concedes, he needs more time to try to get those 20 members who are not on board with him right now back on board with him tomorrow. My sense was always that Jordan was willing to go multiple rounds of balloting on this, but certainly it doesn't seem like he's making progress, especially if we're seeing them push votes to tomorrow.
NBC's Ali Vitale, the center of our politics today. Thank you very much for spending some time with us. We'll continue to call on you.
Thanks.
Joining our coverage is Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, Democrat from California. She, of course, was a member of the January 6th Select Committee. I'm fascinated by the human phenomenon of someone that's bad at the thing they think they're good at, trying to go to the next level, right? And I wonder what your thoughts are about Jim Jordan's view about Jim Jordan being Speaker.
Well, he'd have to answer that himself. He has not been a good chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and he's not been a good member of Congress. He was up to his eyeballs in the plot to overturn the Constitution. We know from the phone records, the extensive calls that he had at the War Room where Bannon and others were with the president, then president, on the 6th, the meetings he attended in the White House. He called on his supporters to march on the Capitol. He's not someone who supports our democratic institutions, and the idea that he would be second in line to the presidency is pretty astonishing.
I mean, I feel like you're being diplomatic. He's a terrible member of Congress in terms of what Congress is, right? He's a terrible lawmaker. He's never made a law. And he's a terrible chair of the subcommittee on weaponization. This was his thing, right? This was the thing. This was sort of his steak and vodka that he got for voting for McCarthy. And he totally whiffed. I mean, he's done a terrible job. They've had no actual evidence. You've got Ken Buck, another. Let's stick with sort of the Republican critiques about Republicans. You got other Republicans saying that the things he tried to do when he was elevated by McCarthy were a bust. So what are you bracing for if he should make up the nearly 24 votes he's lacking and become Speaker?
Well, he's not very good as a chairman or as a member of Congress. You're right. He is a fact-free individual. I mean, if there's evidence before him, he just ignores it and makes stuff up. And that's really hard to prevail on in a legislative environment. I thought that Ken Buck was being actually diplomatic, discussing his failures. But the concern is that not only is he bad at his job, but that he doesn't really support our institutions of the government. I mean, he tried to overthrow the government, and I am not confident that he would abide by the rules of the House, that he would abide by the traditions of the House, that he would uphold the democracy. And the thing is, there is another alternative. We have been clear, and Mr. Jeffries has been in touch with Republicans to say there is a bipartisan path forward that Democrats and Republicans could craft. And I hope that my friends, and I do have friends who are Republicans in this House, will think about that, because we can end up with a stronger institution instead of someone who really helped to try to overturn our form of government on January 6th.
You were part of the committee that developed evidence that proved that even Jim Jordan thought he might have committed crimes. The January 6th report says this, quote, "In the days following January 6th, Representative Jordan spoke with White House staff about the prospect of presidential pardons for members of Congress. Liz Cheney said this, Jim Jordan knew more about what Donald Trump planned for January 6th than any other member of the House of Representatives. And if the Republicans decide that Jim Jordan should be the Speaker, there would no longer be any possible way to argue that a group of elected Republicans could be counted on to defend the Constitution." Should we move to post-wonder that the Republicans are against the Constitution and reframe our conversations about why that is and why Jim Jordan needs Sean Hannity to garner support for him in his own caucus?
Well, I think we need to look at the MAGA mob. The MAGA mob tried to kill us on January 6th. And really, Jim Jordan is calling on that MAGA mob to threaten Republican members of the House and force them to vote for him. And the question is, will that work? I was stunned that Mitt Romney said that some of the senators wanted to convict Trump, but they were afraid of physical violence if they did. So there's that element here at work. And this is an important decision for our country. Are we going to be able to move forward in a civilized manner, supporting our institutions and our Constitution, or are we going to give in to kind of a bully republic? And that's really what Republicans have to weigh. I know that this is a difficult decision for some Republicans because their constituents believe the lies that they've been told. And that makes it really more difficult for them than for me. I do understand that. But in the end, we've got to do what Cassie Hutchinson said and pass the mirror test. You got to be able to look in the mirror and realize you can live with yourself